Well, welcome to this hall, to everyone here on closed circuit TV and on Zoom. We have a very diverse audience today. Some of you have never heard about the DREAM Project, and some of you have been hearing about it regularly since its beginning. We're gathered now for our DREAM Project team to share a review of what this DREAM Project is all about, what's been done till now to begin birthing it, and what's ahead in the next year. We hope you'll leave with a better understanding of the why and the what and the how of it all, and a sense of your contributing to it. Our project team sharing will be followed by table discussions and then in the large group, facilitated by one of our partners today, Brennan. So first, to introduce our DREAM Project team, and I'll invite them all to stand, please. So associates Jeff Odendahl and John Lauer, and sisters Clara Stang and Gert Brixius, and myself, Mary H. And our sixth member here in the photo isn't able to be with us today. Leisha lives in Little Falls, and we really appreciated the unique questions she brings us from her background in environmental human relations. And today we're also happy to welcome Brennan Blue from Great River Green, and an organization that's restoring native habitats up and down the Mississippi River, and especially near us. So to begin, this DREAM Project is about us living into what Pope Francis has called an integral ecological spirituality, a spirituality that says everything, all life, all being, all that exists is interconnected and interdependent. It is our Franciscan spirituality, reminding us that St. Francis named all God created as sister and brother. It's also a spirituality we share with the native people on this land before us. So our prayer today is our land ethics statement, and I invite you to read it with me if you can. The Franciscan Sisters of Little Falls, together with our associates, embrace a land ethic that understands community to include not only humans, but all created reality. We believe that creation is an overflow of divine love in view of the incarnation and expression of God's never-ending active presence in Jesus Christ. We recognize that all created beings are gifts of God, are interdependent, and exist for the common good. A never amen to that. So this DREAM Project officially began in October 2022 during our Franciscan Sisters Decision-Making Delegate Assembly. And at that time, we committed ourselves to deepen our relationship with and care for creation through our spirituality, our land ethic, and this dream that we help heal creation by creating an environmental learning center and restoring native habitat on the Mother House campus and at Umbria. In short, this DREAM Project is about creating an environmental learning center on restored native habitat. With the Environmental Learning Center, we will also continue our centers for music, health and wellness, and our Franciscan spirituality, creating a home of beauty that welcomes All, a place for life to flourish, knowing that everything is connected.
The Mother House campus with St. Francis Convent is where we speak from today. This photo from maybe 15 years ago shows that campus buildings are on the north end of the 80+ acres, with community and school gardens in the center and woods to the south. Much in the middle is not native habitat, and the woods are a mix of natives and non-native plants, some that are invasive. The yellow rectangle shows where a solar array will be installed on the grassland between two pine woods once all the final details are worked out. Umbria has been the Sisters' retreat and vacation place on the Mississippi River since the early 1960s. Previously, it was farmland surrounded by oak woods. The cropland was restored to prairie in 2008. So what makes this dream significant in today's world? Today, we are very aware that we live on the ancestral homeland of the Dakota and Ojibwe people. These indigenous people suffered great harm and were dispossessed of their land by European settlers who arrived in Minnesota as the young United States expanded westward. The settlers cleared land for their own uses, unaware that they were removing finite gifts and biological diversity. Old-growth forests became lumber, and prairie became farmland. The homes of all living here before were decimated. Many settlers and their descendants thrived. Why does this matter? One reason is that native habitats support the life that slowly evolved to live in them. Plants feed the circle of life, and insects who feed on the plants are the critical food base for other life. Insects are specialist eaters who, as a whole, cannot quickly change what they evolved to eat. Imagine humans having to subsist on wood. Insect and other wildlife numbers do fluctuate, sometimes widely. How much wildlife was and is still being lost is an open question. But there is no doubt that whenever we humans appropriate land for our use, other life is lost. So our dream is about addressing these ecological issues while creating a home of beauty that welcomes all of nature in all its diversity. Plants, insects, birds, young, and those of us older. Everything is connected.
It appears that everything is connected to me right now. Last fall, we needed to pause the beginning of the project vision planning to take time for other needed community planning processes to develop. So we continued our preparatory work. This included adding Alicia to our project team and continuing the 2 prairie test plots to assess the difference between land prep with and without herbicides. We also began the multi-year process of removing invasive plants and shrubs on our properties. We'll talk first a little bit about the land processes and then begin to address the human relationships. Our habitat restoration partner groups expanded as we contracted with one already known to our community and with 3 new ones. Prairie restorations, as John mentioned earlier, I did the native prairie restoration at Umbria several years ago. and continues to maintain that property for us. They will begin the oak woodlands restoration late this fall. Great River Greening, Brennan's here with us today, is a nonprofit group in St. Paul. They recently joined us to advise, guide, and help us with overall management of the restoration. Here on campus, a firm named Canati based in Avon is doing the hands-on restoration activity, beginning with the first phase of invasive tree and woody shrub removal. Joe Gohl, I don't see Keith here, but Keith's son and his work partner also removed large invasive trees for us this winter here on campus. We're also continuing our connections with several federal and state conservation agencies, such as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and the Morrison County Soil and Water Conservation District. In February, Prairie Restorations removed invasive trees at Umbria. Now, this picture is not Umbria. On this campus, we removed invasive trees and began removal of invasive shrubs around the same time. This photo, taken last fall, is from the lane into the South Woods by the Peace Garden. It shows a part of our pine plantation almost filled in with invasive buckthorn and honeysuckle. Those are the green shrubs you see between the pine trees in the photo. Here's a picture taken earlier this spring following forest mowing and hand cutting by Canati, much the same area. You can see that the woods are open, sunlight is pouring in, more of the water from recent rains is available to soak in for the trees rather than being snatched up by the invasive buckthorn and honeysuckle. This is the next stage. This is a picture taken this summer. The remaining woodland life is growing into new spaciousness. You can notice that you can see the deciduous trees more clearly back amidst the pine trees. New and resurrected life has emerged from the seed bank. We're also delighted to see that there are actually some native plants beginning to emerge here. Looking ahead, there's much more intensive work removing invasives, and this will continue now for several years yet. What happens with things like buckthorn and other invasives is you cut them down or cut them back, but they continue to come back. So the removal is a long and continuing process. With Great River Greening, we have started planning the upcoming steps in the restoration process. So we not only want to remove what we don't want here, but we want to restore some of the native plants that were here before. Getting ahead of myself here. Our solar array project, which was mentioned earlier, was initiated by others, but we are working with the installation company regarding the prairie to be planted under and around it. Natural Resource Services, the area leader in solar prairie work, is prepping the land for prairie to be sown when the solar panels are installed, hopefully sometime later this year. This fall, we are beginning a marketing and feasibility study to provide information helpful in the vision planning process. Conservation easements are important tools to legally protect the land that we restore from future development. We're actively researching easements, and in a year, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. We hope to be able to bring recommendations for both of these properties for easements. We hope to begin the project vision planning next year, once other needed planning pieces for the community are in place. For now, we are actively preparing, so we will have necessary and helpful baseline information in place. Besides researching conservation easements, a vegetation survey of the lands will be done soon. This will map what plans now exist and where they exist. We will continue nurturing relationships with the area schools and through our connections with the Dakota and Ojibwe peoples. When we reach the point of vision planning, know that it will include input from our sisters, associates, and staff, along with many other stakeholders. So you may be wondering, what will stay the same and what is coming? I have a blank slide here for that in just a minute. Our sisters will continue living here as a Franciscan presence with enough privacy as the space becomes increasingly public. We hope that you can imagine with us the new life coming. Most, if not all, of the current forms of tending campus life will continue. This means that many, if not most, of the existing employment opportunities here will continue, and some new ones will be added. We look forward to wildlife and humans delighting in new beauty, new ways of being in relationship, and for all to thrive.
We are not in this project alone, and besides our many partners in land restoration, other relationships are unfolding. Our Franciscan commitments call us to nurture relationships with both the natural world and with people. Land Justice Futures is a national movement with women religious throughout the United States. It is about protecting land, regenerating its health, and expanding equity and access to those deprived of or driven out of land. This year, 3 of us sisters, Bert, Gloria Hyder, and myself, and 3 associates, Roseanne Fisher, Jeff Odendahl, and Bob Yorick, are participating in our 2nd year with this program. In our work, we're learning about the injustice involved in this land coming into early sisters' hands and slowly developing new relationships with people historically dispossessed of land. And this photo was taken June 28th at one of those times of new relationship building, when 6 sisters and 4 associates visited a Dakota land recovery site near Granite Falls. We're still very much learning and discerning what is ours to do as a community. At this moment, what our circle knows is that we are called to give attention and priority to relationships involving land justice. And we trust that what this means will become clear as we keep walking this path. We are also nurturing relationships with the local schools. And this winter, we visited the high school to share about the project and hear from students and staff. These teachers and more, and some 30 junior and senior students, were very interested and excited about the project and shared some helpful ideas, exciting ideas for what they'd like to see here. We've also been in touch with the local Catholic school principal, and down the road, we'll be in touch with parents who are homeschooling their children. So in conclusion of this presentation, the DREAM Project was birthed amid our community commitment to live more fully into our Franciscan spirituality, a spirituality of integral ecology that says everything is connected. Our land ethics statement, which calls us to live in relationships caring about and for all created reality. And the DREAM Project, in sum, is to create an environmental learning center on restored native habitats. We have long roads ahead yet for the land, the buildings, and the DREAM Project overall. We're happy to have many expert and delightful to work with partners at this point for this journey, and grateful for your input and questions along the way. And now we'll move to a process for sharing questions and reflections, first at your tables and then in the large group. And Brennan will lead us. Welcome, Brennan.
Thank you, Sister Mary, and thank you to the DREAM Project planning team. My name's Brennan Blue. I'm the Environmental Stewardship Director at Great River Greening. And part of my job is to partner with communities who have thoughtful, inspiring environmental projects and to help support them through the planning and implementation, and then ultimately maintenance and enjoyment of those projects. And on behalf of Great River Greening and my colleague Wiley, who is working to help oversee some of the contracts, we're really inspired by the creative, hopeful vision that you see here, and also recognize that any big project comes with a lot of questions too. So we wanted to structure this hour together to first give some informational updates, a review of the overall project, and then use this second half hour as a chance to share in some discussion. So we'll be doing that now. For those of you who are with us in the room, at your tables, you will find some paper and a pen. As we have some dialogue, if it would be possible to have someone be a bit of a note taker to capture in a shorthand version some of the comments that are shared at the table, that would be helpful. We want to make sure that as many voices as possible can be heard, and that your questions, your hopes, concerns, ideas can be filtered back in a virtuous way to help guide the project forward. So it's about 2:25. Which is wonderful. We've got about 30 minutes for some dialogue together. I'm going to have us spend the first half of that, 15, maybe up to 20 minutes at the tables to dive into some rich conversation together. And then we'll use the latter portion of that time, about 10 minutes or so, to invite a few comments back to the larger group room. I'll come around with the mic at that point. So as you are discussing together, listen for what stands out to you as a few of the key prompts. And I'm going to go ahead and we have a... Yes. Yes. For those of you who are on Zoom, in a moment you will be joining breakout rooms, and you'll have a chance to discuss similarly together these three questions. And for your note taking, you might consider capturing a few notes right in the chat section there. And for those of you who are joining us on closed captioning, we invite you to think about, to ponder these questions, and as we'll share towards the end, there'll be a chance to talk with members of the planning project too. But we have three simple questions, and you might notice a bit of a cadence to these questions that we want to invite folks to join in and discuss. First, what about this project resonates with you? Is there something that feels exciting or hopeful, or that feels grounding in terms of the spiritual tradition that you're a part of? Is there something that grants you some inspiration for what's next? What is resonating with you? Second, what feels uncertain at this point? What might simply be unclear? What might be causing some concern or even some anxiety as we learn about this project? What feels uncertain at this point? And finally, what do you hope to see as this project unfolds? We are at an early stage here. As was mentioned, sometime next year we'll likely launch into a more detailed visioning planning process. So there'll be more and more details as we go. But this is every step along the way. The planning team wants to make sure that we're checking in with the wider community, the sisters, the staff, the associates, to ask, what are you hoping for? What feels uncertain? And yeah, what is resonating with you along the way? So I'm going to invite us to take about 15 to 20 minutes to dive into some question at the tables. Again, if you can capture some of those notes, that'll help guide the planning team forward. I'll give a check-in when we have about 5 minutes left, and then we'll have a time to share in the large group. So please discuss, and thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody, for diving in with your willingness to share and to reflect, both for what's resonating, what's feeling uncertain, and things that we may be looking for going forward. It's about 2:45. I know we have some folks who have a tight exit at 3 o'clock. So we've got about 10 minutes here until 2:55 or so to just share some remarks that stood out to folks within your discussion. And our hope is that afterwards, if we could leave the notes that were taken at the table, we want to make sure that the planning team has a chance to read and reflect on all of them. I also want to note that the planning team plans to stay afterwards, both today and many of you can be found here in this community at many times. So the conversation does not end here today, but folks will linger afterwards if you'd like to continue the conversation. Dream Project Team, thank you. Yes, my name is Brennan Blue. Blue, yes, like the color. And I work for Great River Greening, just to make it confusing, yes. All right, well, so we'd love to hear just, a rich, intimate conversation at tables. That was wonderful to see and to catch a few glimpses of. Would love to give a chance to just have some of the wider room resonate with a couple of the remarks that stood out. So are there any tables that would like to share a comment or two from your discussion? All right, yep, we've got a microphone coming right over here.
On? Is this on? Okay. Well, I think one of the things that somebody at our table just said, this will be an amazing legacy. And I think that was kind of covered, a kind of a blanket statement that I think we're all feeling that way. We're just kind of happy to get all together with the vision that is being explained to us at this point. And we're all kind of questioning timelines and how many years into the future will this plan take and that sort of thing. One of the issues of questions was the issue of security and privacy for sisters areas as we become more of a public place. It's already a problem, not a problem, but an issue for us. And it will become more of one as time goes on. And what can we hope to see as the project unfolds? We'll need to create a strong enough institutional base so this can continue without the Franciscan Sisters of Little Falls. That seems pretty clear, but it seems that that's very much in the mind of the planners too. Thank you.
Wonderful, and thank you for kicking us off. I heard there, a strong sense of legacy and appreciation for that. An excitement to welcome people into the campus in a new way, but that being balanced with a commitment to privacy as well. And some interest, of course, in terms of how does this become a long-term sustainable project? Because we don't want to launch something and then see it be unsupported. Yeah. Yep. I'll hand my mic right to you.
I have a few questions, but one is how we, and they did too, what are really determined as invasives? Because I am a horticulturist, so I understand that zones move. When the temperature changes, the zones move. So some of the plants that we have growing here, and in fact, that's what happened with the buckthorn. That was actually a decorative shrub that people put around their homes. The birds ate the berries and went out and pooped in the forest, and that's where they grew. So the question is, how do we know that that is not what is going to happen in the not that distant future, that those very plants that we're getting rid of actually are what can grow here and what will feed the creatures in the meantime? So I think we're narrowing it quite small as what we believe is only correct right now, because we do have limited vision in understanding creation and what she is doing, because I think she has a brain too, and she knows why they're growing here. We don't. We think they're invasive. Maybe they are not invasive. So that's just the thought thinking. It's just questioning to understand how we come to conclusions about what we believe to be true. And what we remove. So one of the things that was said here was they want more communication about when and why things are being removed, and a funeral service for those that are, because it's like, yeah, people have gotten attached to some of those trees and large things that we have seen, and all of a sudden they were cut down, but we were not informed that they had to cut it down. But why did you have to cut it down? Because cottonwood trees are naturally messy and they do die off. And we had 2 big mother trees on our lawn, and they were probably 60 to 80 years old, maybe 80 years old, no more than that. But they get very large because that's what they are. They're massive in how they grow. But they provided good shelter for squirrels and other creatures that like to make their nests in wood. So the question was, why was it taken down? And we didn't really know about it and couldn't question that. So anyway, that's about it.
Thank you. So here and there some questions about what's going on with different species and why. And as we consider the difference, say, between native and invasive plants, are we also considering the fact that we are living in a changing climate? And what may be native and traditional in this particular zone may not be what is resilient long-term in the future. And so are we planning with that in mind? And leaning both into science and the best practices, but also bringing some humility, recognizing that there is a bigger story unfolding here. I also heard some questions about, just a desire for more communication about what's being removed and when, and I think on the other side of that, what's being planted and when and why. Yeah, other tables.
One of the questions we had that, well, how would this all be funded? Hopefully there'll be grants or people with lots of money or some fundraisers that will be helpful to support development of this project. I would like to add to that, grants, donors, partners.
I was very glad to see Mary start with our spirituality and that we are all connected and to have that thrust. And I just have a lot of feelings about those trees when they go down. And I just think we need some, I don't know, it's just so devastating to walk out there and the tree is gone and we don't know why. And so I have a lot of feelings about that.
Yeah, I want to honor that there's a lot of feelings when we see landscapes change, whether that's for a targeted restoration initiative or whether, we see a lot of landscapes change just because we have a summer with drought. Or right now we're seeing a lot of our landscapes change because we have a lot of flooding. And so sometimes it might be a part of a plan, sometimes it may be an ecological shock. And there's some grief there when we see landscapes and plants that we know and relate to personally. Yeah. I think we have time for a couple more comments here. Again, the conversation does not end today, but this is an important step along the way. One or two more tables. All right, we'll go to the back and then we'll come here to the front.
So just something that resonated with us was that the Franciscan Sisters are choosing to be part of the climate conversation and not closed off and not kind of passing it on to someone else. One of our questions was, we talk about Indigenous people and, how will the relationship with Indigenous and dispossessed people be more than tokenism or cause further injury? And as far as project as it unfolds, is there a consideration to return land to Indigenous people?
Some excellent questions and conversation there about, what does the partnership in the conversation look like? I know in working with many groups that oftentimes groups that may be historically predominantly white, reaching out to Native and Indigenous tribes, that sometimes those Native leaders are overwhelmed with asks. And in the case of this project, there is some strengthening relationships there already. So I often encourage folks that the first step is to begin forming a relationship. And then those questions and conversations can happen from a place of relationship, of solidarity, and they unfold from there. So I say that not to answer those questions, but to call out that I think the process that I would recommend for navigating those questions is beginning to unfold in some really good ways. Yeah, love hearing those questions.
Sister Jan, just a comment. Walking out there now, it's so beautiful to see the rows of trees without all the brush between them. I think the sight of it has already been greatly improved in my estimation. It's wonderful to see that pine grove out there as cleaned up as it is. I hope the birds, I still see birds and squirrels around, so I hope the creatures are okay.
That's an appreciation for some of the changes that we're seeing, even as we've heard earlier, some concern about some of the changes that we're seeing. So I want to honor both feelings there in the room. It's 2:57. I'm mindful that staff especially need to leave at 3 pretty promptly. So I want to again thank you all for sharing your remarks. I want to encourage the notes to be left at the table. The DREAM project team will be gathering those afterwards. And the DREAM project team will also stay here physically right afterwards if folks would like some immediate questions. But I'm going to turn things back over to Sister Mary, who will wrap us up further from there. And I want to thank again folks in the Zoom room and who are listening on the broadcast as well.
And just to check, Carrie, were there any questions that came through the chat?
Dorota Meyer asks if there are plans to have a website about the DREAM project.
Are there plans to have a website about the DREAM project? Okay.
And there were a couple of questions about how to report the notes from the breakout rooms. I mentioned in chat to have them email them to you, Mary. But is there another way you'd prefer?
Either in the chat, well, we'll be closing the Zoom pretty soon, I think. So it might be easiest, they could be emailed to me. Okay, on that note, I want to say thank you so much to everyone for coming, for being here on time so we could start it, for your participation, your questions, your comments, your thoughts. We will be taking these seriously. Our team will review them all and we will respond to them in the ways that we're able in group sessions, through notes and community news, most likely those kinds of things coming up. So please pay attention to, community news or emails that go out to staff or the associate newsletter. So we will respond in some fashion. Thank you again. We're grateful for your being here.